So the ban list is out and nothing has functionally changed. It's really weird to see a ban list where the semi-limits are the most interesting thing on the list. That said, we do now have 2 Joker, and that is huge for Pendulum as a whole, so I wanted to show you guys a Pendulum list. That said, I didn't want to show you guys a Pendulum Magician build because all that's really changed there are the ratios. They just get more copies of cards they already had. So instead, I'm going to be showing you guys Zark Pendulum. This is a lot more akin to something like Pepe than it is a modern Pendulum Magician build. This deck was something that you could play before the ban list, but having 2 Jokers here is huge, because you can search your second Joker at the end of your combos to ensure that you have follow-up on the next turn. And while this deck is not the most competitive Pendulum build, what it does do is it makes Zark consistently with backup. So if your goal is to win with Zark and to summon Zark, this is the deck for you. I have 5 combos to show here and a full opening hand, so let's go ahead and get on into those combos. So our first combo here is a 3-card combo to summon Zark. There's a lot of different ways to do this combo, but ultimately what you need is you need to be able to pen 3 with Luster and Scale, and one of the monsters that you Pendulum summon needs to be Pendulum Sorcerer. This exact combo happens rather frequently in the deck. Every card in hand is a 3 of, and there's lots of different ways to get to both Luster and Pendulum Sorcerer. Now, if you aren't familiar with Pendulum Sorcerer, what it does is when it's special summoned, it allows you to destroy up to 2 cards you control, and then search that many Performapals. So it's a very easy way to have constant access to your Skullcrobat Joker. Additionally, we have a lot more search options with Joker than we used to have back when Pepe was a tier 0 deck. Joker lets you search either a Performapal, a Magician, or an Odd Eyes. But Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon lets you discard it to search any dragon. So Joker can functionally search any dragon Pendulum monster. From here we'll be able to go into the Draco Slayer extra deck monsters. These are all Xyz, Synchro, or Fusion Dragons with an ability to summon a Draco Slayer either from the extra deck, hand, graveyard, or main deck. So between these and the Revolution Dragon in the graveyard, we have all of our materials for Zark. And since we have our materials on board, we can go ahead and link those off, and then use a Verte Anaconda to fuse our materials from graveyard using Miracle Synchro Fusion. Additionally, we ended on IP Masquerena, so we can make a Link monster on our opponent's turn, but we also ended on Performapal Celestial Magician. This card is custom made for Zark, because if Zark is destroyed by an opponent's card by battle or by card effect, you can use Celestial Magician, destroy it, summon back the Zark, and that will trigger Zark's ability to destroy our opponent's entire board. So running over Zark by battle, as long as we have this card in scale, is a bad idea for our opponent. Now you're not always going to be able to make Zark, so in those situations, here is a 2-card combo using 2 of the most accessible cards in the entire deck, Luster Pendulum and Pendulum Sorcerer. This combo locks your opponent out of the extra deck and gets you set up ready for next turn. Additionally, you can end on 1 negate. However, that is for a card that isn't currently out yet in the TCG, but it does come out at the end of October, so I might as well go ahead and show that too. Now, in order to do this combo, you do have to play Performapal Help Princess. This card is not a Pendulum monster, but it does special summon itself from hand when you normal summon a Performapal monster, so it's really not that bad. If you haven't already figured it out, what we're doing here is we're going to be summoning Artifact Dagda in order to set an Artifact Scythe from our deck. Additionally, we'll be summoning Halqifibrax. That way, on our opponent's turn, we'll be able to use Halqifibrax to summon TG Wonder Magician, and use TG Wonder Magician to destroy the Scythe, allowing Scythe to summon itself and locking our opponent out of the extra deck. Additionally, we'll have full setup ready on the next turn in order to summon Zark then. The card that I was referring to that isn't out yet is Baroness Stifleur. You can use the TG Wonder Magician and the Artifact Scythe in order to sink into this card on your opponent's turn. This not only gives you a negate, but also during the end phase, Baroness Stifleur can return itself to the extra deck and bring back the Pendulum Sorcerer from the graveyard in order to destroy 2 of your cards and grab 2 new Pendulums. Until we get Baroness Stifleur, I don't know if there are any level 10 Synchro monsters that are really worth making off of this. You could make Rudy Rose Dragon, but that will prevent you from making Zark on the next turn, so I don't know if that's really worth it. Our next combo here showcases one of my favorite cards that I found for this deck, Speedroid Hex Saucer. This card reads, If it's destroyed while in the Pendulum zone, you can special summon one Speedroid Pendulum monster from your extra deck. So functionally, if this card is destroyed, it just summons itself. And the name of the game in this deck really is destroying your own cards. Just to name a few, we have Sky Iris, Master, Luster, Ignister Prominence, and Pendulum Sorcerer as ways to destroy this card. On top of Hex Saucer and Wild Hope, we're also playing Purple Poison Magician and Guiding Ariadne as Pendulum monsters that want to be destroyed. If you're not familiar with Guiding Ariadne, this card was popular in Pepe builds. It wasn't like staple, but a lot of people would play it. If it's destroyed, it lets you reveal 3 counter traps from your deck, and your opponent picks 1 and adds it to hand. It's a way for us to add Solemn Judgment from our deck to our hand in order to negate a card like Dark Ruler No More that could be problematic. Guiding Ariadne is also an easy way to make some of our more mediocre boards a lot stronger. It also makes it to where we have a good backup in case our opponent doesn't care if they're locked out of the extra deck by Artifact Scythe. The last 2 combos I have are going to be showcasing Dragon's Mirror. This card's Miracle Fusion for dragons. You can banish monsters from your graveyard or field in order to summon a dragon fusion monster. Unfortunately, this card is not searchable. Now, I wouldn't be playing this card if its only purpose was to summon Zark, because we already have Miracle Synchro Fusion, which we can send off Verte Anaconda in order to summon Zark. One of the better ways to use this card is to fuse Odd Eye's Revolution Dragon with another Pendulum monster in order to make Odd Eye's Vortex Dragon. Since Odd Eye's Vortex Dragon can shuffle a Pendulum monster that is in your extra deck back into the main deck to negate a monster effect, it is a very easy way to play around hand traps. It also makes your end board a lot stronger, since you're just going to end it with a bunch of Pendulums in the extra deck anyway. You can negate a hand trap and then still have a negate ready for next turn. On top of that, Odd Eye's Vortex Dragon can be revived with Odd Eye's Revolution Dragon because of its Pendulum effect. If this card is brought back, you can bounce an opponent's monster with it. Additionally, this is a fusion dragon, so it is one of the materials listed as a requirement to summon Zark. So late game, you can use this card as a fusion material in order to make Zark. Now, alternatively, if you don't want to play it safe with the exact same hand, you can use Dragon's Mirror in order to make Zark. Because you're using Dragon's Mirror, you don't have to make Verte Anaconda, and as a result, you can use your materials on something better and end on a bit of a more substantial end board. Now, if you happen to draw Miracle Synchro Fusion instead of Dragon's Mirror, you can still make this exact same board, since you're going to be going for Zark either way. However, I would not play more than 2 copies of Dragon's Mirror because you already have Miracle Synchro Fusion, and playing 4 fusion spells in a Pendulum deck sounds really bricky. As a matter of fact, I'm debating whether or not to cut Dragon's Mirror down to a 1 of. It's really good for making the Vortex Dragon, but in hands where you can't make the Vortex Dragon or Zark, it is dead. But at the same time, being able to play around hand traps sounds a bit too powerful to me. It's just one of those cards where you want to see 1 copy and no more than that. Finally, I have a full opening hand to showcase. This hand is by all accounts below average. We did not draw Joker, we didn't draw Pendulum Call, we didn't even draw Pendulum Sorcerer, and we're still going to be able to make a fairly substantial board. Going first, this deck is just extremely consistent. You're going to be able to make Zark more often than you aren't going to be able to make Zark. Where this deck's weakness lies is going second. Pendulum decks as a whole kind of just struggle with this while we're sitting here with the nerfed Pendulum mechanic, having to Pendulum summon monsters to either the extra monster zone or a zone that a link monster points to means that Pendulum decks have a little bit of a lackluster recovery as a whole. Additionally, this deck can struggle with hand traps. If your Draco Slayer extra deck monsters get hit at the wrong point, and the wrong one gets hit, you might not be able to make all of them, which means you wouldn't be able to make Zark. To me, Zark is very comparable to something like the Arrival Cybers at Ignister. If you make it, realistically, you should win that game. Obviously, there are situations where you're still going to lose, but Zark is an extremely powerful boss monster. And the more Pendulum cards that we get back from the ban list, the easier this card is to make. If you think this deck looks like fun to play, definitely give it a shot. I don't think this is a tournament-winning deck, but this is an extremely fun and trolly deck to play. And if you haven't subbed to the channel already, I have plenty of other fun decks that will be coming out in videos very shortly.